America, police officers have a responsibility to serve and protect their community and to protect freedom. But they also possess tremendous power, power which can be abused.
Black samurai!
They don't want to mess with us.
So to every parent who dreams for their child, and every child who dreams for their future, I say these words to you tonight.
Hajime!
I am with you. I will fight for you. And I will win for you. We will make America strong again. We will make America proud again. We will make America safe again. And we will make America great again. I say these words to you tonight. I am with you. I will fight for you, and I will win for you. I am with you. I will fight for you, and I will win for you. voice.
America, police officers have a responsibility to serve and protect their community and to protect freedom. But they also possess tremendous power, power which can be abused.
Fatal police shootings of unarmed suspects caught on video over the last couple of years have obviously sparked new outrage and debate in the U.S. over race and police use of force. Many claim that black people are disproportionately being affected by police use of force. Others disagree.
Tonight, hit and kicked in the face by police. The man assaulted on video, now calling for those officers to be charged as criminals.
Punched, tased, kicked in the head, and incarcerated for no reason. I am a law-abiding citizen whose rights were repeatedly violated.
Demetrius Hollins was pulled over outside of Atlanta, the situation escalating quickly. Watch as one witness captures video of Sergeant Michael Bongiovanni hitting Hollins. That
major outrage this morning after a behavioral therapist was shot by an officer after he held his hands in the air, lying on the ground, his patient with autism sitting right nearby. ABC's Gio Benitez has more on this story. Good morning to you, Gio.
3 bullet holes in the windscreen of a silver Audi and at the centre of an investigation into how police came to shoot a man dead. Forensic officers have photographed and plotted out this scene, the Audi seemingly pinned to a stop by a Mercedes pulling in front of it just off the motorway. West Yorkshire police say the fatal shooting happened during a pre-planned operation. Its commission.
It's very important. The public perception has got to be correct. This was not a pre-planned operation in that they were planning to kill somebody in that vehicle. It was a pre-planned operation to try to arrest them without violence. You know, the risk of it going wrong was covered, and fortunately nobody outside that vehicle was injured.
3 arrests were made here, a further 2 in Bradford, and police have confirmed that no officers were wounded.
A camera directly above recorded the struggle. At some point, one officer, according to the coroner, recounted Mr. Ogboro crying, "I can't breathe, you're killing me." The officer said such complaints were a common thing when restrained. The inquest jury decided a knee was placed on his head as efforts intensified to handcuff him. In the moments that followed, Mr. Ogboro stopped breathing with 4 officers on top of him wresting control, and he never regained consciousness. The footage at this point appears to show he'd stopped struggling. One officer said he thought Mr. Ogboro was playing dead. The inquest was told that none of them noticed anything was wrong until the heavily built man was turned over as part of normal procedure. But the inquest could not determine at what point the tourist died.
They took away my life. They took away my peace. They took away my joy. They took away comfort from me.
The consequences of what happened here on this South London street 4 years ago are still unresolved. While Mr. Ogboro died at the hands of police officers, no one has so far been held to account.
Now, a coroner has recommended a review of police training after a tourist died when officers tried to restrain him. An inquest jury found today that the officers had ignored Frank Ogboro as he cried out, "I can't breathe, you're killing me." The Crown Prosecution Service will now re-examine the case. Be warned, this report by our Home Affairs correspondent Simon Israel does contain distressing scenes.
Now a few items from our Freedom Files. Just when you thought the police's main objective was to help, think again. New York police officers allegedly gave Brooklyn-based junkie Melanie Perez crack and forced her to perform lewd sex acts. This is part of the scandalous details coming from the trial of Jason Arbany, one of the 8 undercover NYPD cops that made up the Brooklyn South Narcotics Squad.
Hello, I'm LRJ from LRJ TV News. Let's go.
Do you guys heard my name before? Never heard? Probably because, you know, probably want to know your officers too. Just like you like to know who your players are. You have a history of this, right? Have you ever done anything wrong? Did I do anything wrong? You're gonna have stuff. Hey, first answer phone. It's your phone. Do something. Do something, okay? No, you get to that shoulder, you're not. Turn you inside out. Blame yourself. Blame yourself. Shut your up. Do something, please. Do something. Take a mental. That's all it is. Shut up. So that shoulder, turn you inside out. Let's show me. You know what's done? Here's how I look. You know how I want to do. And then I write this book saying, say it again, you can understand. You see me again, you fucking yes or no sir, 3 dots or whatever you want, and I suck your and you go backwards. Whatever I say, whatever I say, right? Whatever I say, right? Because next time you fucking show me attitude. Believe me. You understand me? You see me on you, whatever. You smile, you go get a fucking knife. You give me attitude, I'm gonna fucking break you off that. Let's say you assaulted me. Let me see. Go inside. Yeah, just remember me. If you want to complain, it's 3315 in the station that way. Please do. Give me more reason to come out. I've never complained in my life. Go ahead. Next time you see my face, you better show respect, man.
You just witnessed a dirty cop who threatened to plant drugs on someone, threatened to assault them and hurt them. But guess what, people? Was the cop fired? He was disciplined. They gave him 24 hours without pay. Of course, he wasn't fired. The police chief, he's awesome. I mean, this guy literally had an officer who was making child porn and producing it and selling child porn also. He did not fire the cop. He had the cop to go back to work. I mean, that's the kind of police chief we need.
Police officials in Chicago are facing further investigations in yet another shooting of 2 unarmed black individuals.
The Justice Department is turning a blind eye, however, to 2 D.C. Metro Transit cops who slammed a man in a wheelchair at a subway stop. The police allege the man was drinking, that he refused to leave the premises while resisting arrest, and that his refusal, quote, resulted in him falling out of his wheelchair. Apparently, the Department of Justice bought that ridiculous story, even though both the drinking and the assault charges have been dropped. I wonder why. And the DOJ chose to believe the cops' version of this story, despite video evidence that proved the cops were indeed the aggressors. Look at this, how he's resisting arrest, all right? The video of the May 19th incident has already gone viral, but the DOJ spokesperson said there wasn't enough evidence to bring charges against the 2 cops. She said, quote, accident, mistake, fear, negligence, bad judgment are not sufficient to establish a criminal violation. Really? I wonder if she would say that to any other non-police American accused of a crime.
As incomplete as the national data may be now, there are definitely plenty of disturbing insights that we can draw from the solid evidence that already exists. It's important to know what else we may find if we had more information to delve into. The current anti-police violence movements may be totally right about sweeping claims they make, and as we've discussed here, we know that they're almost certainly correct in some cases. And it goes without saying that the shootings of unarmed suspects that are found to be unjustified are deplorable, like many of those that have received national attention after being caught on camera. But we need more data and more studies to really have a complete picture going forward.
Los Angeles police officials have admitted to killing the wrong individual when they were pursuing a carjacking suspect. Now, the suspect that they were pursuing was Robert Alexander. He allegedly pulled a gun on a person who was about to get into his Honda Civic. He then is accused of doing a carjacking, and then he led authorities on a chase. Now, while cops were looking for him, apparently they got a 911 call from an individual who reported a man who was lying on the front yard of someone else's home. The person who was lying on that front yard was Donnell Thompson, and cops mistook him for the carjacking suspect. Now, they say that they showed up to the scene and he was very close to the description of the criminal that they were pursuing, and they kept trying to get his attention, but he wouldn't wake up. So as Los Angeles County Sheriff's deputies searched for Alexander, they found Thompson and mistook him for the carjacking suspect, shooting him dead. The Sheriff's Department initially characterized Thompson, 27, as a second suspect in the carjacking, but on Tuesday, sheriff's officials corrected themselves, saying he had nothing to do with the crime and the assault on the deputies. Sheriff's officials said Thompson was unarmed but did not follow deputies' orders when they found him and may have reached for his waistband, of course, as he ran toward an armored vehicle. Deputies used less lethal weapons as they tried to subdue him, but Thompson was shot when he charged toward them, officials said. Now, let me be absolutely clear about something, and this is not something based on my analysis. This is based on what the cops have said themselves. They said that they were in an armored vehicle and that Thompson did not pose any type of threat to them as a result of them being in an armored vehicle. However, they were concerned that he might hurt some of the neighbors in the area, which is why they decided to shoot and kill him. Now, his family came forward and, of course, is outraged by this because he has no criminal record. He was attending classes at a local college for, people who have mental disabilities. And, he's described as a gentle giant. He's never done anything wrong. Right now, it's kind of unknown why he was laying in someone's front yard. But again, another case of an unarmed person getting shot and killed, even when cops have admitted that he did not pose an imminent threat or an immediate threat to them.
By the way, the reason why they specify that is because they were undoubtedly not in threat of this person. Like, they themselves weren't in harm's way. But they specified the second aspect because, again, that is a legal precedent set forward by the U.S. Constitution that allows officers in situations like this to kill people and then get away with it completely, because it's very, very difficult to assess whether or not they either felt threatened or they accurately could assess if he was threatening to other people in the vicinity. So it's completely legal, technically, from a legal standpoint, that these officers shot and killed this person if they genuinely thought that he would pose a threat.
Now, this shooting involves a 55-year-old by the name of Betty Jones, who cops have already admitted that they accidentally shot and killed, and also a 19-year-old named Quintonio Legrier. Now, both of them were shot and killed. Let me give you the details of what happened. Authorities confirmed a Chicago police officer accidentally shot Betty Jones, 55, as she answered the door for police who had arrived after her neighbor, Antonio Legrier, the father of the 19-year-old, reported a domestic disturbance. So what occurred, and we have few details at this point because, of course, the story just occurred and authorities aren't releasing very many details. But what we do know is that the father of Quintonio called police officials because his son, who has some mental disabilities, was carrying or holding an aluminum bat and was irate. So he wanted to call the police to come handle the situation, and then he called Betty, their neighbor from downstairs, to open the door or answer the door once police officials arrived. Now, cops claim that once they arrived on the scene, Legrier, or Quintonio, was running down the stairs carrying the bat, charging at the cops. That's what they're alleging. And at that point, they opened fire. They shot Quintonio 7 times, including one time, I believe, in the buttocks, indicating that they shot him as he was running away. And then one shot hit Betty in the chest and killed her. So now there's an investigation. Rahm Emanuel's been vacationing in Cuba, and he says that he's on his way back to the United States to deal with this. It's crazy.
It turns out the cops didn't care what group you were in. They saw you with a bat and thought, oh, that bat could hit me. And that could cause some damage. It could. Maybe it could even break your arm. It could swing towards your head. It could be problematic. Let me not take any chances. I won't use my taser. I won't use my baton. There's a lot of us here. We won't try to tackle him. That would mean we could get a boo-boo. Let's just murder him.
Let's begin by breaking down the numbers with regard to what is probably the most controversial and frequently discussed issue right now about police and race. Black people being shot and killed by police, and how those numbers compare to how often white people are being shot and killed by police. Many people who criticize Black Lives Matter often point out that there are far more white people being shot and killed by police than black people, and this is true. In 2015, almost twice as many white people were killed by police than black people. But obviously, since white people are the majority in the U.S. and black people are a minority, we need to take into account the racial and ethnic makeup of the U.S. Black people make up 13% of the population, but they constitute 24% of fatal police shootings. Black Americans are 2.5 times more likely to be shot and killed by police than white people. And with this adjustment, it may seem that the black community are victims of obvious bias or racism in police shootings. But another factor to consider is how often each race is interacting with and being arrested by police. If a demographic is being stopped, arrested, and convicted of violent crimes at a higher rate, then we can expect that the rate of being killed by police will be higher. Obviously, black people do not commit more crime because they are black. Whether or not someone lives in poverty is a much better indicator of someone's likelihood to commit crime than his or her race. White people commit more crime when under the same adverse circumstances: poverty, poor schools, poor job opportunities, homogeneity of poverty within a given geographical area, lacking social safety nets, as well as histories of political oppression. We must also consider that profiling and other racial biases by police are also definitely a reality in the U.S., but unfortunately in the U.S., black people are disproportionately affected by these historical and economic disadvantages, and they do commit more crime than white people in general. Based on the most recent available Justice Department statistics, black people make up over 28% of all arrests in the U.S. They make up 39% of arrests for violent crimes, 49% of arrests for murder, 34% of arrests for illegal weapon possession, 34% of aggravated assaults, and they make up 55% of arrests for robbery. So, black people are 13% of the population. Results of other studies have suggested the presence of racial bias when looking at more specific parameters, which we will do now. A recent study by the University of South Carolina and the University of Louisville, using 2015 data collected by the Washington Post, shows that there might be racial bias when it comes to unarmed suspects who were shot. The study determined that a black person shot and killed by an officer is almost twice as likely to be unarmed than a white person who is fatally shot by police. Black and white crime rates have no bearing on these statistics. We're talking about what happens once the officer and the suspect are already in an altercation. Not only did they find that black people fatally shot by police are more likely to be unarmed, they determined that unarmed black people shot and killed by police are in fact less likely than white people to be posing a threat to police during the altercation. One of the authors of the study, criminal justice researcher Justin Nix, said, quote, "The only thing that was significant in predicting whether someone shot and killed by police was unarmed was whether or not they were black. Crime variables did not matter in terms of predicting whether the person killed was unarmed."
America, police officers have a responsibility to serve and protect their community and to protect freedom. But they also possess tremendous power, power which can be abused.